Hello, my fellow cinematic architects, and welcome to Remake This Movie Right. This is a member of the Hollywood Outsider Network. You can listen to episodes of Remake This Movie Right on iTunes, where reviews are appreciated, Stitcher Radio, throw our RSS feed into your podcast app of choice, or just visit the website at remakethismovieright.com. If you end this episode and you think we are idiots, but you have a pitch of your own you want to submit to prove us all how stupid we are, email it to remakethismovieright@gmail.com, and we will read the best pitches on our next teaser episode. Remember, our show is every other week, so in between, we have a teaser episode where we go over feedback, emails, and pitches. What is Remake This Movie Right? Well, pretty much since everything is getting a remake these days, and I mean everything, we thought, why not take the original film that has an actual remake in the works, figure out what still clicks and what doesn't, throw a little bit of humor at it, and then determine exactly how Hollywood should remake it. So by the end of each episode, we will have the remake ready to roll for Hollywood execs and presented to you in movie trailer form. We are here to tell Hollywood how to remake this movie right. I can't say for certain we've done it 100% yet, but we've given it a few shots. What do you want me to tell you? I am your host. My name is Aaron Peterson, and joining me today from the Hollywood Outsider is Brian Williams.
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Ready to do this again?
Absolutely. Bring it.
Okay, and for the Blacklist Exposed and Under the Dome Radio, Troy Heinritz.
What's up, everybody? Good to be back.
Are you excited?
I am. This is one of my favorite movies, so I'm really interested to see how we can make it more modern for today, yet still have that same nostalgic feel.
Like, favorite all-time movies?
No, just if it's on, now that it's actually on Netflix, I got to watch it over the weekend. I enjoy the movie in general, even though it is a little campy in parts as you watch it today.
So what movie isn't that's 30-some years old? You know? Well, for this episode, I should probably say, we are remaking Wargames. Now, to give you a little backstory on Wargames, that's a 1983 film. Wow, it's that old. I feel so old.
As a young Ferris Bueller.
Yes, young Ferris Bueller, who also... didn't Ferris Bueller hack into his school computer to change something? Wow.
Change the days that he'd missed, right?
Yeah. So apparently Matthew Broderick is really a hacker in real life, if you think about it. Well, he played a teenager who unwittingly hacks into a top-secret Whopper computer, we'll get there, to play a game and accidentally begins World War III. The film was directed by John Badham, but it also originally was directed by Martin Brest, who got fired midway through and was replaced by John Badham. So Martin Brest ended up doing Beverly Hills Cop. If you remember Beverly Hills Cop, he ended up doing that one. The movie also starred Dabney Coleman, Alice Sheedy, and John Wood as the brains behind the Whopper, Mr. Falcon. Here's a few fun trivia bits about the original. It made $79.5 million in the U.S. That's quite a lot in 1983 monies. I always thought it was one of those cult hits, you know what I mean? But it was a really big hit.
Ali Sheedy's coming right off of like a big performance in her previous movie, so maybe they were coming to see her, maybe they were coming to see John Wood. Yeah, I mean, it's right after Reagan gets shot and everything that's going down there in the 80s, so it's probably top of mind, and people are just interested in the whole nuclear concept.
Well, it was also nominated for 3 Academy Awards.
Wow.
That I did not know.
Brian's bringing facts.
Bam.
Some other trivia bits. The NORAD Command Center that's built for the movie was the most expensive set ever constructed up to that time, built at the cost of $1 million. The producers were not allowed into the actual NORAD Command Center, so they had to imagine what it was like. That's cool. I had no idea about that. And it doesn't look like $1 million in 1983 money either. It just looks like the A-Team set.
Well, I was wondering when they did the door, when it slides shut and that prop, did they actually film the door in 4 different bolt shots, or was it one shot and they just turned the camera 90 degrees for each one?
Oh, I'm sure that's what it was. They didn't have a lot of money back then. Come on. The writer's main inspiration for the character of Professor Stephen Falcon was Stephen Hawking. And Hawking was originally approached to appear in the movie, but he declined because he didn't want the producers exploiting his disability. How's that for a fun fact?
Nice.
This movie inspired Congress to create and update the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act of 1984. Now, here's a little fun fact about the Whopper computer. Now, if you haven't seen Wargames and you're just listening to the podcast because you enjoy listening to it, or you haven't seen it in a long time, the Whopper was that giant computer that the whole movie was based around. And in the movie, it's actually, behind the scenes, was made of wood and painted with a metal finish paint. And as the crew filmed the displays of the Whopper, special effects supervisor Michael Fink sat inside and entered information into an Apple II computer that drove the countdown display.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And the last one, when the message for the tour group in NORAD is activated, the sound effect you hear is actually used in the video game Galaga. And it can also be heard if you listen carefully when David is playing the game at the beginning of the movie. You can actually hear it.
That I actually picked up on after my watch this past weekend.
Did you really?
I did. I heard the tone and when he was playing Galaga, and I was like, hey, wait, that comes up later in the movie. That's cool.
Oh, and as Troy alluded to, the movie is currently as of recording on Netflix. So you can, if you got Netflix, just pop it in and relive it a little bit. It brings me to my first question to you guys, and I'll start with you, Troy. What makes this a movie worth remaking? We're talking about the original, then we talk about the remake, then we give you our final pitch. What makes this movie worth remaking?
Well, I think the big thing about this movie when it first came out, like I mentioned, it was a focus on the nuclear program. And it starts out with these two guys in a silo, and they need to decide if they're actually going to turn the key because they get an emergency action response message. And the whole situation is about, should we actually have these men in the silos who might not be able to carry on with this, or should we have a computer actually turn the keys instead of humans? And as we think about today's day and age with the internet, and everything that goes on with maybe doing automation with robotics on assembly lines, and thinking about with AMC coming out with their Humans television show this summer about Android potentials. I think that concept about can computers replace men still makes it a viable topic for today. So that's why I think a remake would be okay. But of course, the nuclear question, I think what we'll talk about tonight is it still nuclear? Is that still prevalent today, or do we have to make it something else?
That's a really astute point. Brian, you anything to add?
Wow.
Yeah, he just made you feel dumb, didn't he?
Yeah.
A little bit.
I was just going to go with, it was pretty good. One of the things that, kind of, I guess, to Troy's point there, one of the things that why this really, I guess, struck a chord with a lot of people is in 83, I mean, we're talking right there in the middle of the Cold War. And home computers was, a fairly new thing and everything. So the ability for a teenager to hack into something this major and to cause this type of potential disaster is mind-blowing. So sure that had a lot. That's what, a big portion of the draw was back then.
Yeah, it's definitely the horror of it all. And computers, people weren't as familiar with computers. Now everybody thinks they're an IT tech. They're not. But that's how people think now. But back then, it was really the unknown. There were very few people that understood computers to that level. So I think it's just one of those things where it really was a fear for a lot of people. Like, how vulnerable are we as a country, as a nation, as a people? And computers were great and exciting and new. And then we came to find out, wow, there is a lot people can do with computers. I mean, now they control every aspect of our lives, but then they just controlled the big stuff.
And take the nuclear part of the equation out of this, right? I mean, it still stands today as a potential remake because of the fact that when you look at what he was able to do to hack into this computer, I mean, it's a social engineered attack, right? He needed to get the password about Falcon's kid in order to get through the back door. I mean, those social engineering things are happening today with email phishing schemes and things of that nature. So I think the concept behind how you hack into the system still is prevalent today.
Troy, I'm getting really concerned with all your big words, and you're making me feel a little stupid. I'm just letting you know. You smart son of a bitch. Okay, so that's what makes a movie worth remaking, because it's still relevant today, obviously. What no longer works, or probably never worked to begin with? Brian, I'll go to you first, because I think I know what you're going to say.
Well, I think the main thing that really doesn't work is the technology. It's just a product of its time. I mean, you've got to find something else, of course, nowadays to make it more relevant. But for me, what doesn't work is the drama the movie built. It was rewatching this there was more drama for me in with Dabney Coleman in Cloak and Dagger than this.
Wow.
Wow.
It just felt like entry level drama.
You didn't feel like the tension was ratcheted up enough? basically.
Not considering that, potentially World War III is on the line. It just didn't feel like that it was that imminent. The fate of the world is in your hands right now. You've got World War III you're on the verge of that literally within seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably 3 to 5 minute scene where the code is being figured out by Whopper was that was the biggest tension in the whole movie. The whole other time just kind of felt like teenager kids just kind of, oops, I've seen something I shouldn't have, and now I'm having to run from the cops type of thing. It just,
I agree with that. I think the tension now I don't know what it was like in 1983 because I don't remember. That was a while ago. That was more than a weekend, so I can't remember more than a weekend away. But the way that it presents itself now, when I watch the movie now, the tension is not as dire. It is not the world is going to end. There's that moment, and I like the movie, don't get me wrong. I think it's a classic. I think it's a brilliant piece in terms of its time frame, but now it doesn't hold up because I watch it, and that moment where the guy goes with his gut and decides, I'm going to do what I've been upset about, and I'm going to have a human moment, and I'm going to trust this kid. I just didn't buy it. Watching it now, I just don't buy that choice. I just think everything is telling you that this world is coming to an end. I don't know if you trust your gut on that one. You know what I mean? I think he needed more than just, come on, does it make any sense for the fate of the world? And to me, that took away a little bit of that tension, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a room full of people that have decades, if not centuries worth of experience, and then all of a sudden this teenage prodigy comes in and like, yeah, just trust him.
Troy, what about you? What then, because you're a big fan of it and you love this movie, it's one of your favorites. What doesn't hold up for you anymore?
Two things. One would be the nuclear concept. I think we're at a point now where people understand nuclear weapons bad.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to really kill each other if we can help it, although things seem like they might be tipping back in that favor with some of the things happening over in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
But not as prevalent as they were during the Cold War. So I think now would be more of a cybersecurity maybe, or something of that nature that would be more realistic for today's age.
Or a weaponized virus.
Or something. Yeah. Just especially given the recent events within the last month, there was that day where the United flights were all grounded and the New York Stock Exchange stopped trading on the same day at the same time. Like that's freaky. And even though they said it's not related, how do you not think that it was? And then you could totally make a movie off of that.
Because everything is invested in our cyber world. So that could actually bring the world down. Technology itself could bring the world down without ever firing a shot.
Correct.
Okay.
So I think that's how you can get around the nuclear thing, but the nuclear definitely doesn't stand up today. And then I was actually on the same lines as the drama, but only at the reverse angle, because as I rewatched it this past weekend, I thought they did a really good job of kind of setting up with the clock on the Apple II, it's 48 hours left, 24 hours left, 12 hours left. And it's like, how is this kid going from wherever he was to Colorado to the island?
He's got the Jack Bauer plane.
Exactly. That's exactly what I thought. I was like, the 24 time mechanics are involved here. But when it got down to the end and he locks in Joshua locks in the code, and you're like, okay, the code's locked in, the silos are open, the engines are going, and yet he's still playing tic-tac-toe, and then he still goes through the thermonuclear war scenario. Like, shouldn't those missiles be long gone by now? Mm-hmm. That's the part that I first time watching it that I was like, that kind of doesn't work. You needed to make sure that the number was still flashing as he was playing the thermonuclear war to make it more like, oh my gosh, is it going to get done before he gets that last number? And it wasn't that. And it was kind of like, well, that kind of takes you out of the scene a little bit.
Okay. Well, now we know what doesn't work. For me, it's the Whopper itself. I mean, it just looked like a hunk of junk. And, throughout the movie, they continue to cut to it. And it's like they're using the flashing lights to ratchet up tension. And I just kept going, why do I need long periods of time where I'm looking at lights flash? I mean, is this supposed to be imposing or what? At the time, I'm sure that worked because we didn't know what supercomputers were. But now that we're all older and we know how computers work, we're like, okay. Can we move on? Can you show me an ominous laptop somewhere instead or something? I'm tired of looking at the Whopper. So,
yeah, somebody in 1983 is going, what's a laptop?
Exactly. Well, should War Games, we always ask the question, should this movie be in no touch status, don't touch status, which means it's a movie that works fine, leave it alone. So far, we haven't come across one that was in that status. So do you think War Games fits? I do not. I think it definitely needs to be updated.
I think if you were to remake this movie now, it would probably be the equivalent of going straight to the Blockbuster shelf. This is just one of those materials. I think it could be remade.
I hope so, because we're going to do it in a second.
Probably even should be remade. I think, like you say, you don't have to do the nuclear thing. You can do some sort of bio weapon, like say weaponized virus, or make it an economical type, it wipes out Wall Street or stock exchange or something like that. But just one of those things to where I can see it like starring Dominic Purcell and Kirk Cameron or something.
All right, then.
Left Behind meets Prison Break.
So I can't decide what your answer is. Does it mean that it should be remade or not?
No, with all the other stuff that's being remade, why not remake this one? But I think if it were to be remade, it would be, like say Dominic Purcell, maybe the Dominic Monaghan, the short guy from Lord of the Rings, or something.
You would have to drastically update the concept.
It'd be full of like B-list actors at best.
Okay, what about you, Troy? Don't touch status or should be remade?
No, it absolutely should be remade, and I think it should be, if it's remade, it has to be modernized in order for it to work. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it absolutely would be like a B-shelf blockbuster type deal. But I think this was ripe for society today. We talk about these hacks that we've been doing, the rootless thing and the 0-day vulnerability. I think there's a lot with technology that we could totally play off of, and then tie that into some way, like with the Euro and Greece and all that. So there's enough in the news today that you could totally make it work. Mm-hmm. It just depends on how you want to go with it, and then who do we get to play in it, and that's what we get to have fun with tonight.
And that's what we're going to do right now. As we get into our remake, we always ask, how many nostalgic moments should our movie have? Well, we decided before the show, we took a vote, and between the numbers of 1 and 5, 5 being an absolute classic, we need 5 moments where we look back at the original movies, versus 1 where this movie really isn't a classic. I don't know why they were remaking it to begin with. We ended up with a 3 because we're kind of split. One or two of us like it a little bit more than the other one. So we need 3 nostalgic moments, and the 3 that we decided on, number 1, there has to be a flying pterodactyl at some point. Please rewatch the movie if you don't know what we're talking about. There's a flying pterodactyl, and it's a machine. It's not the actual pterodactyl. Number 2, there has to be some form of representation of Matthew Broderick's computer from the original movie, or a giant floppy disk, either one. And 3, there has to be at some point a version of tic-tac-toe and chess as nods to the original. So I think it's pretty easy to do. So now let's go into our remake. Now, the remake is where we break down the plot, and then we cast it, and we find out who our director is going to be. But the plot is the big one. What is our story going to be? How do we modernize this movie? We all decided it does need to be remade, and better, because the original script apparently would star Dominic Purcell and Kirk Cameron. What we know about the intended remake right now, the actual remake being made, Project Almanac director Dean Israelite is set to direct at the time of this recording. He says they will be utilizing modern technology to bring the real threat to the forefront. I could see that. And since War Games is definitely getting a remake, and because no one listens to us, how should they remake it? What do you guys think? Let's get into it story-wise. Who's got the first idea? Troy, let's start with you. What is your idea? How do we modernize War Games?
Well, the premise that I was kind of toying around with after watching it this weekend, there's the guy in the background. He was in Midnight Madness, and I'm going to totally forget his name, but he's like the geeky guy with the glasses. When he goes to the computer club to say, hey, what did I hack into? Is this...
In what? In what?
In the original.
Okay.
Talking about the geeky guy from Greece?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that guy.
Okay.
So my concept started out with, that guy is like pissed off because Lyman was able to hack into the system and he wasn't. So now it's like 30, 40 years later.
Oh, so you're making it kind of like an extension, not so much a complete remake. You're actually connecting the two.
And so he's like running the computer club at the college. And I kind of drew on a little bit of Sandra Bullock's The Net. and a movie that was recently out called Dragon Day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think combining all of that, it was basically this guy running this computer club. The floppy disk machine is in the back because it's a computer club, and that's how we work that in. And his concept basically is to make a virus that can basically spread its way through the web, kind of like Skynet, if you will, but not controlling robots or anything, but literally being able to attack computers. And the computer, of course, runs havoc. It's out of control. And it's eventually starting to take down like computers in the military so we can have the military involved.
Now, let me stop you real quick because I want to be clear on something. Because me personally, one of the things I did like about the original War Games is that you've got a kid who inadvertently, unwittingly causes World War III. Now, is this guy trying to cause a war, or he's just trying to prove that he's as good as Matthew Broderick's character and he doesn't mean to cause this havoc?
No, he actually writes the virus, but then he uses one of the kids in the computer club unknowingly to unleash the virus.
How so? How would that work? I'm listening.
That's the part that I'm kind of still lost on, and I'm trying to tie it in. Either it's like through a smartphone thing or through an Apple Watch or something that modernizes it a bit. But somehow he like goes to some computer club file and unknowingly clicks the pi sign from the net from Sandra Bullock that starts to unleash this thing unbeknownst to him. And then the things like trying to ask him like phishing email scheme type stuff questions that he just keeps feeding data to until he realizes what happened. And then he's got to try to fix it with his girlfriend for the rest of the episode and undo the code.
So is your theory that because no kid could really unwittingly hack into NORAD at this point, because of the way things are, they would have to intentionally be doing it?
Correct.
So this is a way to get around that? Is that kind of what you're thinking? So somebody uses the kid and his advancement to accidentally bring down the government?
Yep, something like that.
I like it, but I think it almost kind of goes against the whole feel of the original. If I'm understanding it, which as Troy has definitely shown us early in this podcast, he's way smarter than both of us combined. So the teacher is basically created this weapon and it's just sitting there, and then the student finds it, or he intentionally basically kind of tricks the student into unleashing this.
Yeah, something like that. Like maybe he even uses the old floppy disk machine and he's like, oh, this is cool. Let's check this out. And he boots it up. And then the minute he boots it up, it actually puts the virus onto the network. And then the virus, because he logged in with a code or something or a username, the virus starts to like ping his cell phone with text messages and then, reply to stop, reply to help, and then as he's doing that, he's actually inputting codes that the virus needs to propagate across the net.
What if the computer, I kind of like where you're starting off with it because it's a remake, but not quite a remake. And I like that. What if this guy's been working on this program for a long time because he, for whatever reason, he wants to hack into something, the computer club runner. So let's say there is a computer club runner. And then you've got a kid in this computer class. Do they still have computer club, by the way? I assume so, because you brought it up.
Well, I don't think it's a club anymore. I think it's an actual course.
Okay. Well, a computer class. He's teaching a computer class. And then he basically has been writing a virus because he wants to hack into something, but not the government. I really think you have to leave it unwittingly to an extent, and that even this guy doesn't know that he's just trying to, hack into banking accounts or something along those lines. And he asks this kid for some help. The kid, he doesn't explain to the kid why he needs his help. He's just writing a program, an intrusive program of some sort. And of course, none of us are computer coders, so I'm sure we're getting something wrong. I don't care. That's what our writers are there for. And then basically the kid by writing the code that the kid does, it opens a door to government installations. The virus, as it runs its course, appears to our enemies, whoever they are, ISIS, the Soviet Union, because they're kind of our enemy again.
I was thinking China.
China.
Day movie.
There you go. China.
Yeah.
It appears to China as though we have infiltrated their economy and brought down portions of their economy intentionally. So they retaliate, and therein begins the World War III, a modern World War III, as opposed to, just this guy is purposely making this kid trying to bring down a nation. The kid writes code, and as the code works and it evolves, he writes it so that it evolves, and it ends up causing this problem. And it's even bigger than the computer class guy originally thought.
Yeah, and I like where you're going with the having him unknowingly write code that he's not knowing what it's going to do. Because that was another movie I was thinking of to kind of pull for influence on this was Antitrust with Ryan Phillippe and Tim Robbins, where he was trying to build that massive satellite or whatever that can communicate all over the world. So, yeah, I like that idea.
Okay. Brian, are you
Sounds
on board?
like we're kind of dangerously getting close to like some sort of AI. I mean, some, artificial intelligence kind of stuff taking over.
And I think artificial intelligence is the real threat today. I mean, if you go back to 1983, nuclear war is what everybody was freaked out about. Well, now everybody's afraid that computer viruses are going to bring the world down. We're going to lose our credit card history. We're going to lose everything we own. Everything is tied into computers. And I think if you follow along with that and use the code where it becomes a sort of artificial intelligence, because it evolves, it starts to think and it becomes its own thing. I could see that connecting. You know what I mean? And I could see a bitter computer programmer who's basically, he saw the potential, and he saw Matthew Broderick's original character become rich and famous because, he went on to become a successful mogul, maybe in the Bill Gates mold or something. And then he's still bitter and angry 30 years later. So that's why he's come up with this plan to try to hack into something. And this kid that he's got in his class is way smarter than him. So when he takes this code and, he thinks he's just writing a program to help him, hack into his own personal account or something like that. And he just sees it as being fun and innocent. And then it escalates because he accidentally writes code that becomes artificial intelligence and begins to think and grow and conquer. Because
so
that is possible.
The teacher
now.
is actually Jim Carrey from playing the Riddler before he became the Riddler.
To an extent, sure.
In a sense, yeah.
To an extent. Wow, that was a leap. We got to Batman Forever somehow through all that. What do you guys think of that whole concept? Does somebody have a different idea they want to approach?
No, I like the that idea of kind of bringing in, almost making like, I guess the artificial, this computer or this program that's doing things on its own, but for the most part, after a certain point, like say it needs some sort of prodding, some sort of steps to get there. But once it kind of gets there, it just kind of takes a life of its own. And it's pretty scary.
And yeah, it is. And I think one tweak we could add is, we had the Ally Sheedy character, which I thought was an innocent, but she always appeared, dumb girlfriend role. It didn't really seem like they gave her any substance at all in the movie, my opinion. So maybe she, they have, a crush. I don't really think you need the love story, but you can have it if you want. But she's in the computer class too, and she actually has ideas that go into that help that code. So basically it's two kids that unwittingly, so you kind of have a reason why she's dumb enough to hang around with this dip, versus the simplicity of, you can change my grades. You know what I mean? I have two uber smart characters as opposed to just the one.
Well, and I almost wanted it flipped around, because when I was thinking about it with this whole movement of women and girls and STEM and all that's in the news today, that maybe the female character is actually the one that unleashes it, and she's got the, if you want to make them both smart, that's fine with me. I was thinking more of like the nerdy boyfriend that's just there, and the kid like pines after her or something, so he's just kind of in the background, kind of like Ally Sheedy was in the background most of the movie.
You know what? Here we go, because there's so much of this in the media today, because it seems like sexism is always around everywhere. I like that. The female is actually the really smart one. I feel like, didn't we just switch that in Gremlins? That's okay. We'll just keep doing it.
I like twisting it up.
Yeah. But she's the extremely intelligent one who's trying to prove herself, because she has the class teacher. He realizes that she's brilliant, but doesn't quite, he realizes that she's desperate to prove herself to him because she's not seen as smart as her guy
lab partner or
whatever, something along those lines. And then she ends up with the dumb jock boyfriend. Well, why would a really smart girl have a dumb jock boyfriend? Has a guy that's not as smart as her, but kind of fawns over her because she's so smart. And he comes along because men are stupid and will follow women anywhere. That's a fact of life too. That's not a story point. The way that we're tweaking this, you're not going to have NORAD so much, but I assume you're still going to have a NORAD component. You're going to have the military represented at some point. How do we do that? Who's the villain of the piece?
If you're going with the idea, then the villain is obviously this computer club guy, but it's also China or whatever country we decide to pick. Mm-hmm. And the military component comes in with the, how do we talk down China from leashing a virus attack on the stock exchange or the airline industry or whatever it is of their own. And
well, you're going to need some military representative. So some along the lines of either that guy that was the commander in the movie or a Dabney Coleman. I mean, or a combination, or basically you merge those two characters into one. And that way we have a government representative, because at some point, and I think China's the right call, actually. I think China's perfect. Because based on, their economy is really eclipsing ours. They're becoming a dominant power, superpower. I could see China being a major factor. And then you've got the government official who, after China says, well, you know what, you just attacked us. You tried to bring down our economy. So now we're going to come after you. And they basically find out that it's this kid that actually, for however they find him, they track him down. And then the kid, starts to realize exactly what's going on, and he has to figure out how to convince China that it's actually his mistake and he didn't mean to crash their entire economy. He would have to convince the artificial intelligence to back down some point.
Right.
How do we do that?
Well, I think that's probably the climax of the movie, right? So you get to the climax of the movie, and I think that as the AI intelligence is growing, then eventually it comes up to a point where it starts to talk, right? Hey, I am Falcon or something, or I am Whopper, and I'm looking for Joshua.
Well, okay.
We can even name the character Joshua.
Whopper's got to go. Whopper has got to go.
I got it.
Oh, boy.
Here we go.
Okay.
Buckle up.
Hold on to your butts.
Now, Whopper was what? WOPR.
Mm-hmm.
They call it, War
Operation Plan Response.
Right. But of course, they call it Whopper for short. It's just easier.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't call it Whopper, because every time I
get hungry.
Every time I heard Whopper, I kept thinking Burger King throughout this whole movie. So I've got one. We're calling it Big Mac.
Because that's better.
Bioimaging Global Mobilization Area Calculator.
You really had to search for that last one, didn't you? You're like, what fits C? Crap.
Yeah. By the time I got there, it was like, whatever. None of these abbreviations make sense anyway. They make them work. So,
okay. Well, I definitely don't want Big Mac either. I like the idea. I like where you're going. No, we don't. We don't need BMac or Big Mac.
Like a bad boy band name or something.
I don't even know if it needs an acronym, but it definitely doesn't need to be Whopper. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. At this point, because you're not really dealing with a supercomputer, you're dealing with, an entire infrastructure. It's bigger. It's more cyber. It's more modern. It's current. I like it.
It's in the cloud.
Exactly.
Well, it's got to be.
It's an Amazon Web Service.
It probably would work. That would make sense. And I think you name the character that's like a merging of Dabney Coleman and Watson, who was the commander in the original movie, the guy that was in charge of NORAD, the general. You merge them and you just call him McKittrick, just because I think that's a cool name, Dabney Coleman's name in the movie. And he's just one character. So you've got David is the boyfriend who's not as smart. The character of Jennifer is actually the cyber genius. All right, so our last character is Melvin. That's the computer club computer class teacher, computer course teacher. He can't be. Do you have the same actor? Well, we'll get to that in a second. So how do we climax our movie? Well, that sounded wrong. How do we conclude our movie?
Well, and we need the voice of the AI.
We need the voice of the AI?
Yeah, the AI finally speaks at the end.
Oh, because it has voice. That, do you want to play a game in the original movie and you want a voice now?
Potentially. If it gets smart, it should be able to talk, right?
That's true, and nobody has those robotic voices anymore. Now it's like people voices. So well, we'll get to the casting in a second. How do we conclude our movie? What is the climax? Is it basically it comes down to our character Jennifer having to talk the AI, or how would she resolve that issue? Because in the original, he tries to play tic-tac-toe, and that's how he tricks that version of AI. How does he do it in this one?
So I guess...
Or how does she do it? I keep saying he. How does she do it in this one?
Yeah, so I think if we're trying to make a point with this movie, right, something that people can walk away from the theater thinking about, I think it's really a matter of maybe we're too connected to our devices and not connected to each other. And because she's a female, not saying that all females exhibit this, but most females are more sympathetic, empathetic than males are. So maybe it's just literally that. Maybe it's having a conversation with the AI to get the AI to understand that it's not about taking over all the computers. It's about being friendly and helpful and doing something good for society. Kind of weak, but I feel like we have to be anti-computer.
Well, yeah, I'm not real sure about having a heart-to-heart or, conversation with a computer is, kind of the best way of wrapping it up. Maybe create an alternate program or because that would probably take a while, maybe build off of something else that was already in process. And then she tweaks it enough to say, to counteract the AI to where maybe she can program this second program to, for lack of a better term, talk down the AI that's kind of gone haywire.
I don't know about that because it feels like something that's done in every cyber movie now. You know what I mean? Like it's always like I built it and then you have the tension and then it takes it apart. I like the simplicity of the original War Games where how Matthew Broderick broke it down to bare bones and made it work. Now, if we've got AI involved, the Turing test comes up, which is, for those that aren't familiar, the Turing test is basically a test that Alan Turing came up with eons ago to say AI is really only functional if it can convince a certain amount of people that it's human versus computer, right?
Yep.
I think there's got to be some way to implement the Turing test in here. I think that's important because anytime you're discussing AI, I think you can't have artificial intelligence that takes over.
That's fine. You just, or we could do it, just explain this Turing test or whatever, just kind of like Occam's razor was introduced in whatever, one of those, I don't know, some movie, they mentioned Occam's razor is, whatever, they explain what Occam's razor is, and then it's just kind of referenced once or twice more throughout the movie. Just do it like that.
Okay, but that still brings us to how do we solve, like, what is the riddle, so to speak, that is going to solve this dilemma, that's going to finally convince the AI that what it's doing is wrong. It's hurting people. It's destroying people. How do you trick the AI into that?
Okay, so I'm going to call my cut here. And so the way it's going to end is I like Brian's idea where she needs to work with the boy, right? Because we still have this other kid character in the movie. They have to work together to write a program that then the program goes in and actually explains, why whatever the AI is doing is bad. So it's almost creating like another AI, right? Because as the movie goes on, they're learning about the AI so that they could code it faster, quicker.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to learn as it propagates. And then what they decide to do is actually build them their own space in the interwebs where the two programs can live out their lives, almost like V'ger at the end of Star Trek, if you will, where they could just live out harmoniously together, although knowing that at some point, could they ever break out of this cordoned off, firewalled area and propagate once again to cause damage, leaving the ability open for a sequel.
Oh, man, we're always thinking sequels around here, aren't we?
Got to make money somehow.
Hey, well, he called cut, so that is the climax.
That is it.
I guess I don't have any more debate, you son of a bitch. I appreciate that. Appreciate you trumping all my ideas. Well, who's going to be our actors? Who's going to be the characters? We've got Kittrick, who's basically the merging of Dabney Coleman and the general from the first movie. We've got David, who is now a boyfriend, but he's not the genius. It's now Jennifer's the genius. You've got Jennifer, David, Kittrick, and the computer club guy. What was it? Malvin?
Malvin. M-A-L-V-I-N. Malvin.
Malvin, the computer club president, Malvin. So who's going to be our Malvin?
And the voice of the AI.
Oh, okay. You're obsessed with the voice. Whoever the voice is. John Hamm. There you go. That's my contribution.
Well, the guy that played Falcon, John Hood or whatever his name is,
Wood.
He was actually the voice of Joshua or Whopper, whatever.
Is he still alive?
I'm just saying, he doesn't have to do this one. I was just throwing it out as a little trivia nugget for you.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, he's dead anyway. I was going to say maybe Matthew Broderick. He could be the voice.
Well, I was going off with the antitrust concept about playing, having the girl code the program unknowingly. And I was going to say Tim Robbins would be the voice.
Nobody saw Antitrust but you, man. That was a huge...
It was a good movie. I liked it.
That's cool, but nobody else would recognize that. And if you're going to have a War Games remake, well, I'm yelling cut because I don't want to dick around with that one. I want Matthew Broderick. If you're going to have the voice and I want to tie into the original movie, Matthew Broderick. I also think it would be a nice little stick it to Melvin in the end. You know what I mean?
That would be funny.
Yeah. So Matthew Broderick, hopefully we can get him. Well, it's our movie. We can coax him back. We'll give him $12 million and he can do that. He can do the voice. So who is going to be Jennifer? Who's going to be the main hacker? Is it really? It's not really a hacker. She's
a programmer.
Programmer. Yeah. Who's got the best idea for Jennifer? Teenager, early 20s, something like that. Because it could be a college class too. I
went with Amy Tiergarten. She's got that sweet kind of, girl next door look, but yet she's really attractive. And I figured that would. Who is Amy Tiergarten? Amy Tiergarten was Friday Night Lights coach's daughter. She was in Scream 4. She was also in another movie that. Who is she in Scream 4? Who is she in Scream 4? I have to look it up. I don't remember. Okay. I don't know her, so I'm not against her, but I really don't know who she is. I didn't watch Friday Night Lights. Sorry. You need to. Brian, do you know who Amy Tiergarten is?
Not by name, no.
Do you have another idea for who would be Jennifer?
Well, I kind of had her in mind as more of a supporting role, but that was the girl from Harry Potter that Harry Potter ended up with. Oh, Rom's sister, Jenny. Yeah.
Jenny. Oh, wait, that's Forrest Gump. Sorry.
Like I said, but I mean, I don't know how she would handle because in this case, we're talking about a lead actress. Mm-hmm. So it kind of makes me second guess her. I kind of had her more in mind of a supporting role, but
as you think of somebody else potentially,
Emma Watson. How about Emma Watson? Or is that she's too popular right now? Nobody wants her because she's too good.
Yeah, I think you need like an offshoot person. Tiergarten played Jenny Randall in Scream 4.
I don't remember who that is. I have a hard time saying, yeah, that's the right actor when I don't know anything they've been in. So
she was also in Prom in 2011.
Oh, that classic? I don't know her from Adam, man. Can she play a computer genius?
Oh, yeah. From her character in Friday Night Lights, I totally think so.
All right. I'm fine with that. I mean, I never watched Friday Night Lights, so I'd hate to not cast an actress and rob her of her stardom just because I didn't watch a TV show.
What about Alexa Vega?
No, she's a sex pot.
Yeah.
Brian, you were making a totally different kind of movie than we are. Two decide to vote. Amy Tiergarten it is. All right, who's David?
I picked Aaron Taylor Johnson from the Kick-Ass movies.
Oh, all right. He could play kind of smart, but not super smart.
I'm going to go Dylan O'Brien. He was in The Maze Runner.
Yep, I know who he is. He's on Teen Wolf. I'm siding with Brian.
That's a good one, too. That's a good one, too.
Yep, I'm with Brian. Dylan O'Brien it is.
Good.
And we've got, who's going to be Melvin? I don't want the same guy because I just want somebody who's a little bit more, who can act. The original Melvin just did not pull it. So who is going to be our vengeful but geeky 50-year-old?
Wow.
I had to list it differently. I said Bill Paxton.
He is a little nerdy, and he is old.
Interesting. What about you, Aaron? Who are you?
I don't know. I mean, Mel was a really, really noticeable nerd. He was just so exhaustingly exaggerated. You know what I mean? And I don't want.
But then they become like the beautiful bachelor type when they get older. You know, they grow out of it type of thing.
Yeah, see. That's what I would like. I would like somebody who's not what you would expect. He's not. He doesn't look the uber nerd part. Like he's changed everything, and he still can't fit in, kind of thing. Based on what? James
Vanderbeek.
Too young?
He's too young, isn't he? I mean, he's
too
not.
Young?
Yeah, he's not in his 50s yet. He's like 35 or something. It's one thing to play older, but to play ancient, I don't know.
Well, Tim Robbins could play that role then.
I like Tim Robbins. He's not too handsome, and he's lanky enough. He could be I could go with that. Tim Robbins sounds good. He's a good actor.
He's already got the repertoire from Antitrust to be that kind of
really
maniacal.
Troy, let it go.
Yeah,
seriously.
Yeah, you've won.
Yes, you got it. You got most of your movie here, pal.
Quit selling it.
Yeah, we're getting really close to just cutting you. So just calm down. And lastly, who's going to play McKittrick? Who's going to play that combination character? Who's like tough as nails, but also has a little bit of heart, so they can hear
Guy
reason.
Pearce.
Shit,
Ooh.
I'm sold. Done. I don't even need to hear anymore.
Man, I wanted Peter Krause from The Lost Room and Parenthood.
Why don't you come up with another antitrust actor? You got another one? Maybe Ryan Felipe. He could play.
No, nobody else was good in that movie except for Tim Robbins.
I'm sold. Guy Pearce, because he's a fantastic actor and he can pull that. Oh man, he's got that owned.
Yeah,
owned. Okay, well we got our actors. Woohoo! Amy Teagarden, I don't even know who you are, but you are going to be the star when this comes out. Is there anything in terms of direction? Who do we want to make our movie? We said we want to ratchet up the stress, the tension, the intrigue, so to speak. So who's a good director currently that can pull that off?
I picked Roland Emmerich.
There would be an Alien at some point and probably a Godzilla. I don't know if Roland Emmerich. I wouldn't trust him with a smart movie. How's that? Is that a nice way to say it? I don't trust the director of Independence Day with a really smart movie.
My backup was Robert Zemeckis.
Zemeckis I could get behind. I could definitely get behind Zemeckis. The only one I could come up with was Doug Liman. He did The Bourne Identity and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. He's really good with tension. And I don't mean the shaky cam Bournes. I mean the very first Bourne. He's really good with tension. I really like him as a tension-focused director. He's very good at creating an environment that gets people at the edge of their seat.
And what's funny is that his last name is Lyman, just like David Lyman from the original movie.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's probably an antitrust connection too if you really look for it. So
I'm fine with that. I mean, that's kind of what I was leaning towards, is something that was bringing tension and stuff. So
okay. So when do we release it? We got our movie. We got it made. When do we release it? Summer, fall, spring, winter?
February.
Yeah, I was thinking like January, right after Christmas. So yeah, winter.
Yeah, winter 2017. We need time to make it.
Yep.
We got to have time to make our movie.
It's really bad that it's not good enough to be released on Thanksgiving weekend, because you could totally tie it into Black Friday then.
I don't know. Our last remake was that we released on Thanksgiving. I don't know if we want to release two in Thanksgiving. I mean, we can only take the
holidays.
holidays.
Only produce so much, right?
Exactly. We got to spread our movies out. We can't have them all released on the same day. That's crazy. Okay, so we've got our remake. We're going to do our final pitch. Somewhere in this movie, we're going to have a flying pterodactyl. We're going to have, obviously the Broderick computer or the giant floppy disk, like Troy said, can easily be in that computer class. And we're going to have a version of tic-tac-toe and chess as nods to the original. I figure we can play them in the computer class.
Well, my thought was, as we open up the movie, we open up on the college campus, and it's two guys sitting there at a table, and they're playing tic-tac-toe. And then as the camera kind of pans in on the two guys, they get frustrated, and they're like, oh, let's just play a game of chess.
Okay, something along those lines. That works. Well, guys, let's get into it. Those are our nostalgic moments. We've got our movie. We've got our cast. We've got our director. It's time for our final pitch. Brought to you through the vocal stylings of Wayne Henderson, who can be found at mediavoiceovers.com. Here is our movie, our modern day version of Wargames. Take it away, Wayne.
In a world ruled by technology, one woman has unwittingly set in motion a game that could end us all. Besieged by envy and a perceived slight for over 30 years, Malvin just wants to make the world pay. Enlisting Jenny, a brilliant programmer, Malvin puts the pieces in place for a global cyber meltdown, putting China directly in our crosshairs. Upon discovering Malvin's manipulation and attracting the attention of the full force of the United States military, led by Colonel McKittrick, Jenny and her boyfriend David set off to win a game we are all destined to lose. This winter, Director Doug Liman shows you a horrifying vision of our world to come. Join Amy Tiergarten, Dylan O'Brien, Tim Robbins, and Guy Pearce as they race against time to save mankind. The board is set, and the pieces are in place. This is not child's play. This is War Games.
Nice job, Wayne. As always,
Nice.
Great job. Great job.
I almost teared up there after that.
Did you really tear up?
A little bit. It's mostly halfway my movie, so I'm like, I actually want to make this now. Let's go.
Yeah, we're actually going to scrap this entire episode now and go start from scratch because Troy really won a little bit. You really thought this out, man. I'll give you credit. You really thought it out.
Well, I took a lot of notes as I was watching it on Saturday night because there was nobody here except for me. So
now you just made this the saddest story.
it is
I've ever heard.
almost as sad as getting caught in a chimney on Christmas Eve.
Oh, God. I got to go rewatch Gremlins just to hear that sad story again. I love that story. Well, what did you guys think? Did we nail it? Do you think you have a better pitch? Do you have a better idea? Email us your short pitch or thoughts on this week's show to remakethismovieright@gmail.com. That's remakethismovieright@gmail.com. We're going to mention the best pitches on our teaser episode. Like I said, we have a remake episode every other week. In between, we have a teaser episode. Review us on iTunes, thumbs up on Stitcher if that's how you listen, or just throw our RSS feed in your podcast app. I want to mention Wayne Henderson one more time. Thanks again, Wayne, for all you do with the trailers. He can be found at mediavoiceovers.com. His podcast, Fan Podcast, the Under the Dome Radio. Why do I sing it? Because they do. And he also does the voiceover Journey podcast, kind of like the journey of a voiceover artist. Very interesting. Troy Heinritz, where can people find you, sir?
Currently, as this comes out, we are finishing up Under the Dome Radio over there at underthedomeradio.com.
Because you do Under the Dome with Wayne, actually.
With Wayne. And Wayne and I are actually kicking off a old yet familiar podcast for Packers fans across the United States and the world. And we're actually rebranding over at packersfanpodcast.com. Website might be up by the time you hear this episode, so check it out if you are part of the green and gold.
And Brian, where can people find you, sir?
Yeah, at thehollywoodoutsider.com. Of course, our Facebook group is pretty active. And on Twitter at Brian, BRIAN WMS, Brian WMS.
Send him all kinds of really inappropriate tweets. Please do that.
And I guarantee you I will send them back, and I will win.
All right. Well, you can find me at, you can actually go to the Hollywood Outsider Twitter. I'm way more active on that one at H_outsider. You can find me on the Hollywood Outsider every week and this show every other week and the Blacklist Exposed when that show was actually on. So I do that with Troy. We have a good time with that. We try to have as much fun with that show as possible. Thankfully, the theories are crazy, so we have plenty of fun. We do have a Remake This Movie Right Facebook group, so be sure to find it. There's also a Hollywood Outsider Facebook group for fans that are just fans of movies and television. You can find Remake This Movie Right on Twitter at Remake Right. That's at Remake Right. That's going to do it for this episode. I think we are done. Troy, close us out.
And the next movie you watch, remember that eventually it will get a remake, but only you can make it better.